Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Speak Smart podcast, where we help you learn English in a fun and engaging way. Today, we're taking a deep dive into something I think we all love talking about, hobbies.
Ooh, hobbies.
Yeah, kind of dissect a really cool episode from another English learning podcast. And they chat about hobbies in a super relaxed way, almost like you're just hanging out with friends.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I like that. What's great about that approach is that it helps you absorb vocabulary and grammar and natural conversation flow just by listening. It's almost like learning by osmosis.
Oh, I love that. It's like picking up English tips without even realizing you're studying. So you already know hobbies are things you do for fun in your free time. But what makes them different from just vegging out on the couch? This podcast made me realize it's all about that spark of passion, that thing you're drawn to even when you're exhausted after a long day.
That's a really insightful observation. It's about finding those activities that truly energize and fulfill you, not just fill time.
Exactly. And they brought up so many benefits of having hobbies, not just for fun, but for our well-being too. They talked about how hobbies can help us relax, de-stress, feel happier, and even give us a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah, it's like a built-in happiness booster and confidence builder all rolled into one.
Right. But they went even deeper, connecting hobbies to skill development. Like, think about photography. It's not just about taking pretty pictures. It's about learning composition, paying attention to detail, maybe even telling a story through your lens. Those are skills you could apply to so many areas of life.
Absolutely. And even something like cooking, which might seem purely recreational, teaches you about planning, following instructions, maybe even a bit of chemistry and cultural exploration.
It's amazing how these seemingly simple activities can pack such a punch in terms of personal growth. And the podcast hosts highlighted that hobbies can open doors to new experiences and opportunities too. You might join a club, meet new people who share your passion, or even discover a hidden talent you never knew you had.
I love how they emphasize that aspect. Hobbies aren't just solitary pursuits. They can be gateways to a wider world and richer connections.
Speaking of connecting, this podcast did a great job of showing how to talk about hobbies in English, which is perfect for our listeners. They gave some simple phrases like, I like to, or my hobby is. But I'm wondering, how can we go beyond that to really make our conversations sparkle?
Well, they suggested adding personal details to make your descriptions more engaging. Instead of just saying, my hobby is baking, you could share a story about how you got started, like maybe your grandmother taught you her secret recipe, or what you find most enjoyable about it.
That's a great tip. I'm picturing myself at a party saying, my hobby is collecting vintage postcards. I love the way they offer glimpses into the past, like little windows at different times and places. It all started when I found a box of my grandmother's old postcards in the attic. Suddenly, it's not just a hobby, it's a story.
Exactly. And that personal touch can make all the difference in captivating your listener and making your English flow more naturally.
Okay, so now that we've covered how to talk about hobbies, let's dive into the different types they explored. This part was like a vocabulary goldmine. They started with creative hobbies, things like painting, writing, playing music, crafting, anything that lets your imagination run wild.
Yeah, it's that outlet for self-expression that can be so fulfilling, whether you consider yourself an artist or not.
Right. Then they moved on to physical and outdoor hobbies, like sports, hiking, biking,
Camping.
anything that gets you moving and enjoying nature. I'm already feeling more energized just thinking about it.
And there's something so grounding about connecting with nature, especially in our increasingly digital world.
I totally agree. Then there's the category of collecting and intellectual hobbies. This one's fascinating because it covers such a range, from collecting stamps or coins, to reading, solving puzzles, even learning new languages, like you're doing right now by listening to this podcast.
It's all about engaging your mind and feeding your curiosity, whether it's through tangible objects or knowledge itself.
The last category they discussed was social and community-based hobbies. Things like board games, book clubs, volunteering, anything that brings people together and strengthens those social bonds. It reminds me of Maria and the community garden they mentioned in the podcast.
Oh yeah, that's a perfect example. Maria loved gardening and turned her passion into a way to bring her community together. They could learn new skills, grow their own food, and connect with each other in a meaningful way.
That's so inspiring. It shows how a hobby can become something much bigger, a force for positive change and connection. It makes me wonder what kind of impact we could have by sharing our own passions with others.
Yeah. That's what I love about this podcast episode. It encourages you to think bigger, to see your hobbies as more than just personal enjoyment. They really emphasize the benefits of sharing and teaching your hobbies to others.
That's a great point. I hadn't really thought about it before. But sharing your hobby could totally amplify the positive vibes. What do they have to say about how to actually do that?
Well, they suggested starting small. Maybe talking to friends, family, or colleagues. Casually mention your passion and see if anyone's interested in learning more.
Okay, yeah, that's a great way to test the waters. And maybe even find some unexpected common ground. But what if you're feeling bold and want to reach a wider audience?
The podcast had some ideas for that too. They suggested joining local clubs or online communities, hosting workshops or classes, or even sharing your hobby through social media or blogs.
Oh, that's a fantastic idea. I love the idea of connecting with people online who share your passions, no matter where they are in the world.
Exactly. And they even suggested thinking about the skills you've developed through your hobby and how you might be able to use them to give back to your community.
Ooh, that's a cool angle. Like if you're an avid knitter, you could teach knitting classes at a local community center or donate your creations to a charity. It's like turning your passion into a superpower.
I love that analogy. And speaking of superpowers, the podcast also talked about the importance of discovering new hobbies throughout life.
Yes, it's so easy to fall into a routine, but trying new things keeps life interesting and helps us grow. It's like giving your brain a workout and expanding your horizons at the same time.
And the podcast host pointed out that stepping outside your comfort zone with a new hobby can do wonders for your confidence. You might surprise yourself with what you're capable of.
Plus, you never know what hidden talents or passions you might uncover. Okay, so we're all on board with trying new things, but how do we find those hidden gems? The podcast had some great advice for that, right?
Absolutely. They suggested starting by reflecting on your interests and passions, even the ones you haven't explored in a while. What activities bring you joy? What have you always been curious about?
It's like digging into your inner child and remembering what used to light you up. I'm picturing myself with one of those, when I grow up, I want to be worksheets from elementary school.
That's a great way to tap into those forgotten dreams. They also talked about seeking inspiration from others. Talk to your friends, family, and colleagues about their hobbies. See what sparks your interest.
It's like a treasure hunt. And don't forget about online resources. There are countless blogs, websites, and social media groups dedicated to all sorts of hobbies. You're bound to find something that piques your curiosity.
And for those of you who are learning English, remember that trying new hobbies can be a fantastic way to practice your language skills. You'll be exposed to new vocabulary, have more to talk about with native speakers, and maybe even make some new friends along the way.
It's like a win-win. Okay, so we've explored different types of hobbies, talked about how to spice up our conversations about them in English, and even brainstormed ways to find new ones. But let's be real. Keeping those hobbies alive over the long haul can be a challenge.
That's so true. It's easy to get excited about something new.
Yeah.
And then let it fizzle out. But the podcast offered some really practical tips for staying motivated.
Oh, I'm all ears. What did they suggest?
Well, for starters, they emphasize the importance of setting goals, even small ones. Having something specific to work towards can keep you focused and motivated.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like instead of just saying, I want to learn how to play guitar,
Yeah.
you could set a goal of learning a specific song by a certain date.
Exactly. They also talked about the importance of making time for your hobbies. Even if it's just for a few minutes each day, schedule it into your calendar like you would any other important appointment.
It's about making your hobbies a priority, not just something you squeeze in when you have spare time. I think that's where a lot of us go wrong.
I agree. And they also emphasize the importance of connecting with others who share your interests, joining a club, attending workshops, or even just chatting with friends who have similar hobbies can keep your passion alive and help you stay inspired.
Yeah. It's like having a built-in support system to cheer you on and keep you accountable. And it sounds like they really covered all the bases. From finding new hobbies to keeping that passion burning bright. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling super inspired to reevaluate my own hobbies.
Yeah.
And maybe even sprinkle in some new ones.
I'm right there with you. This deep dive has been a great reminder that hobbies are so much more than just leisure activities. They're tools for self-discovery, growth, connection, and even giving back to the community.
I love how they framed it, that hobbies can be a source of personal joy and a force for good in the world. What really stuck with me was that story about Maria and the community garden. Such a beautiful example of how one person's passion can ripple out and create something truly special.
Yeah. It's a powerful reminder that we all have something unique to offer, And our hobbies can be a conduit for sharing those gifts with others. It's not just about what we gain from our hobbies, but what we can contribute.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And it ties back to what you were saying earlier about using our hobby-honed skills to give back to the community. It's like a double dose of feel-good energy.
Exactly. And speaking of feeling good, remember those mental and emotional benefits we talked about earlier? Stress reduction, mood boost, increased confidence, even a sense of accomplishment. Hobbies are like a natural remedy for so many of life's challenges.
It's like having a secret weapon against burnout and boredom. And the best part is, it's a weapon you actually enjoy using.
That's the key. It shouldn't feel like a chore. If you're not enjoying your hobby, maybe it's time to shake things up, experiment a bit, or even try something completely new.
Ooh, I love that. It's a reminder to stay curious and open to new possibilities. And who knows, that new hobby could be the thing that brings even more joy and fulfillment into your life.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of hobbies, I want to leave you with this thought. What one hobby will you try or revisit to add more color, connection, and maybe even a little sparkle to your life?
That's a great question to ponder. And remember, it's never too late to start. Whether you're dusting off an old passion or venturing into uncharted territory, the most important thing is to find something that speaks to your soul and makes you feel truly alive.
And don't forget to embrace the journey. The beauty of hobbies is that they're all about exploration, experimentation, and having fun along the way. So what are you waiting for? Go out there and discover the world of hobbies waiting for you.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the wonderful world of hobbies. We hope you feel inspired to discover new passions or reignite old flames. And who knows, maybe we'll bump into each other at a community garden, a book club meeting, or even a pottery class.
That would be fantastic. Until next time, happy exploring.
Thank you for listening to the Speak Smart podcast, and subscribe my channel like the hit button.